तमस्तकामस्तकामस्तकामस्तकामस्तकामस्तकामस्तकामस्तकामस्तकामस्तकामस्तकामस्तकामस्तकामस्तकामस्तकामस्तकामस्तकामस्तकामस्तकामस्तकामस्तकामस्तकामस्तकामस्तकामस्तकामस्तकामस्तकामस्तकामस्तकामस्तकामस्तकामस्तकामस्तकामस्तकामस्तकामस्तकामस्तकामस्तकामस्तकामस्तकामस्तकामस्तकामस्तकामस्तकामस्तकामस्तकामस्तकामस्तकामस्तकामस्तकामस्तकामस्तकामस्तकामस्तकामस्तकामस्तकामस्तकामस्तकामस्तकामस्तकामस्तकामस्तकामस्तकामस्तकामस्तकामस्तकामस्तकामस्तकामस्तकामस्तकामस्तकामस्तकामस्तकामस्तकामस्तकामस्तकामस्तकामस्तकामस्तकामस्तकामस्तकामस्तकामस्तकामस्तकामस्तकामस्तकामस्तकामस्तकामस्तकामस्तकामस्तकामस्तकामस्तकामस्तकामस्तकामस्तकामस्तकामस्तकामस्तकामस्तकामस्तकामस्तकामस्तकामस्तकामस्तकामस्तकामस्तकामस्तकामस्तकामस्तकामस्तकामस्तकामस्तकामस्तकामस्तकामस्तकामस्तकामस्तकामस्तकामस्तकामस्तकामस्तकामस्तकामस्तकामस्तकामस्त Vamahe. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. The theory of perception. We'll read from the paragraph where it talks about the Vedantic theory reaches further to establish the underlying reality in both. The topic Vedantic theory of perception 1, 2, 3, 4, the sixth paragraph.
The Vedantic theory reaches further to establish the underlying reality in both. The supreme reality, Brahman, is all-pervading. It exists everywhere, in the subject and the object. The object flower has certain quality, which is variable, changing. Take away the quality from the flower. What lies beneath is not zero, not nothing, but the changeless reality. The quality is the structure, the reality, the substratum. The union of the structure and the substratum is the flower. Similarly, the reality lies beneath the subject, beneath the thought of the flower as well. Thus, the reality, Brahman, supports both the subject and the object, the thought of flower and quality of flower. These facts defined and brought together gives the mathematical equation for the world. Let the quality of flower be represented by QF and the underlying reality by B. Then the equation for the flower, the object flower will be QF plus B. Which is the quality of flower and the underlying reality put together? Take the example of another object, a pen. The pen has its quality. Let the quality of pen be represented by QP. The reality is the same, B. Then the equation for the object pen will be QP plus B. Similar equations can be made for the countless objects of the world, and the whole object world perceived will be the aggregate of the qualities of all objects of the world and the reality. Let the entire range of objects of the world be marked O1, O2, O3, etc. The qualities of the objects be QO1, QO2, QO3, etc. The underlying reality B. Then the equation for the object world for the entire perceived world will be QO1, Q plus QO2 plus QO3, etc. plus B. The subject is the mind. It consists of various thoughts. The thought of flower, thought of pen, thought of entire range of objects of the world. When all thoughts are removed from the subject, what remains is not zero, not nothing, but the underlying reality. Let the thought of flower be represented by TF, the underlying reality by B. Then the equation for the subject flower, that is, the thought of the subject mind reacting with object flower will be TF plus B. Similarly, let the thought of pen be represented by TP, reality by B. Then the equation for the subject pen, that is, the thought of the subject mind reacting with the object pen will be TP plus B. Again, the entire range of objects is O1, O2, O3, etc. And the thought of objects TO1, TO2, TO3, etc. Reality B. then the whole subject mind perceiver would be the aggregate of the thoughts of all objects of the world and the reality. The equation for the whole subject, the entire mind, perceiver of world will be TO1, TO2, TO3, etc. plus B. The Vedantic theory states the perception of the flower is the result of the combination of the subject and object, the union of thought of flower and quality of flower, TF plus B, and QF plus B. Therefore, the equation of the flower is TF plus QF plus B, and the equation of the pen, TP plus QP plus B. Likewise, the equation of the phenomenal world will be the combination of thoughts of objects and qualities of objects and Brahman. The combination of the entire subject and object and Brahman. Therefore, the mathematical equation of the world will be TO1 plus TO2 plus TO3, etc. plus QO1 plus QO2 plus QO3, etc. plus B. Thus, the Vedantic theory of perception states the phenomenon of the world is brought about by the reaction of the subject and object in the medium of Brahman. A few interesting illustrations given below help to further elucidate the theory. 1. Two palms clapping produce sound. Either one of them on its own cannot. It is the play of both palms that does it. Similarly, the subject mind alone cannot produce the phenomenal world, nor the object world. It is the impact between the two that accounts for the perception of the world. Second, electricity has a positive and a negative pole. Neither of them produces a spark, but when the two poles come in contact with each other, a spark is created. Though electricity as such has no spark in it. Likewise, Brahman, the supreme reality, has no creation, no world in it. But when the two conditioning of Brahman comes together, there sparks off the phenomenal world. Brahman, conditioned by thought, becomes the subject mind. Conditioned by quality, becomes the object world. The subject and object are like the two poles of electricity. When they come together, there arises perception of the world. Third, the ocean is a vast sheet of still water below the waves on the surface. The water below is calm, whereas the waves on top are ever disturbed. They produce ripples and bubbles, froth and foam all over the surface. Notwithstanding the varied expression, it is water and water alone. The sheet below, the waves, the ripples, the bubbles, the froth and foam. The different manifestations are brought about by the collision of waves. One wave is like thought of the subject mind, and the other like quality of the object world. When these two impinge, there arises the disturbed water, the phenomenal world. Brahman is likened to water in the ocean. One wave to the subject, another to the object. When the waves clash, there arises the varied expression of water. Similarly, the clash of the subject and object produces the phenomenal world. However, Brahman remains the same, changeless reality before and after the world emerges, just as water remains as water in and through all its expressions. Fourth, the world projected upon Brahman is like a pattern of cloth woven from cotton. The pattern is made up of warp and woof. The warp and woof are like the subject mind and object world. The combination makes the pattern, produces the phenomenal world. Just as cotton pervades the warp and woof, the entire pattern, so does Brahman pervade everything, everywhere. Thus, Brahman remains ever the one supreme reality. absolute, immaculate, unaffected by the projections of the world upon it. Brahman is like space. Space cannot be conditioned, limited, divided. Yet it is referred to as spot space, room space, inside space, outside space, etc. Nevertheless, space is one indivisible, all-pervading entity, not subject to division. Brahman transcends even the subtlety of space. It is ever the illimitable, indivisible, infinite reality. That reality is yourself, your Atman. Realize that. You will then realize the illusory nature of the world and rise above it. Become the supreme reality.
First, we saw the idealism, and then we studied the realism, and then we studied the Vedantic theory of perception. Extending this Vedantic theory of perception to conclusion is, it's not only the subject and matter interaction, the subject and the subject and object per se being matter, they cannot interact without the support of the consciousness. So by bringing in the interaction itself is happening by the support of consciousness. Vedantic theory of perception establishes consciousness also. So that's what we are going to see now. How Brahman is the reality, the Brahman is brought in as the very important factor in a perception. So what is perception? What appears to us as objects and the subject viewing them, and which we generally take us as the subject. Again, I repeat, what appears to us as objects and the subject viewing them. So for all practical purposes, when we ask who is the subject, we tend to say, I am the subject. I am the subject. I am the subject experiencing the object. Vedantic theory of perception says both these two, the subject and object, have no intrinsic reality and exist only in relation to the other. This is how it proves Vedantic theory of perception. It doesn't have any intrinsic reality of its own. They define each other, one another, having a relative temporary existence. And reality is that which is making all this possible. And realize that Brahman and understand the illusory nature of the world. And how the illusion is going to play, we are going to see in the next chapter. So here what he is saying, what is the nature of perception and how at one level perception seems to be real, but at the deeper penetration you understand that perception itself is not real because neither the subject nor the object have any intrinsic reality on their own. Because both of them borrow sentiency from something else. Since they borrow sentiency from something else, it is that which makes it possible. Then what is this phenomena of perception? A temporary existence. Reality is that which makes all this possible. How do we understand this? In a very simple manner before you go into the equation. When we say subject and object, the object is external, the subject is closer. Correct? Subject and object means what? Subject means whatever the subject is, anything other than the subject which is external to the subject is what is called as object. Correct? Are you okay till now? If you understand this, down the line it becomes easy to follow. What is the subject? Something viewing it. Object means external to the subject. To put it very simply, the tree is external. You see a mango tree. You say the mango tree is an object. Why do you say the mango tree is an object? Because it is external of you. It is outside of you. It is different of you. You are able to see it. You are able to experience it. So externally, the externality, if at all there is a word like that, I don't know. Yeah. Internality, external, if at all there is a word like that. The very fact that something is external is what makes it qualified to be called as an object. It has to be different from the subject. Then only it can be called as an object. So the tree is the object means it is external to the subject. If body becomes the object, then who is the subject? When we say body is the object, it means body has become external. There is a subject that is viewing the body. Mind becomes the subject and body becomes the object. At another level, mind itself becomes external because it can be viewed. External means, this is the definition of external. External means it can be viewed, it can be understood, it can be experienced. Again, I repeat. What did I say? External means it can be viewed, it can be understood, it can be experienced. It means if these three are fulfilled, it becomes external. Taking this definition, if you see what is internal, what is external, what is the subject and what is the object, everything qualifies to be the object. Then who is the subject? The moment the subject says, this is me, that me instantly is, if you say this is me, instantly whatever you call as me has been viewed, experienced or understood, or a combination of all these three. So the very fact that you can view it or experience it or understand it, it means it becomes external to you, it becomes outside of you. What is making all this possible? Reality is that which is making all this possible. In the medium of reality, some interaction is happening. Now, from the absolute level, we come down to a relative level. What is the relative level? The true seer is never the seen. All that is seen is the object. That is level 1. And then what is level 2? This level 1 is slightly difficult to comprehend. Then we come to level 2. What is level 2? There is the subject. Relatively, there is a relative acceptance of there is an entity called the subject. We accept. Temporarily, we are, for argument's sake, for analytical sake, we are accepting that there is an entity called the subject. And that entity called the subject observes, views, experiences everything in the form of the thought. So thought becomes the subject. Are you able to follow? Venkatachalam. It's not complicated at all. It's very easy. Or the book makes it easy, I make it more complicated, isn't it? So what becomes the subject? The thought becomes the subject. And whatever the thought pervades, it becomes the object. So there is the thought, and the thought pervades something, views it, understands it, experiences it, it becomes the object. So now so temporarily for analytical purposes, we accept that there is a real subject. Even though we are not going to accept that there is a real subject, because the real subject is never the original seer is never the seen. Upanishad. The original seer is never the original seer is never the seen. If the original seer can be seen, then that seer also is viewed, understood, experienced. You keep going backwards, 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 what will happen? We'll just go mad, that's all. Nothing else happen. Yeah. What will happen? We just go mad. Eh? Because if you logically, if you peel off, you go back and go back and go back, logically you have to hit zero. But then life is not based on human logic. Life is not the reality is not defined by the human logic. Reality, the life is defined by the reality which transcends human logic. What does that mean? It transcends human logic. You remove all the qualities from the object. Whatever you call as an object is nothing but a bundle of qualities. What you call as an object is just a bundle of qualities. We have seen that already in the introduction. We saw that already. Nama, Rupa, Guna, Karma. It has a name, it has a form, it has an attribute, it has a specific action. So object means it has a name, it has a form, it has a guna, it has a karma, it has a very specific action. So object means can be viewed, understood, experienced in terms of its nama, rupa, guna, karma. Remove the nama, rupa, guna, karma, what happens? Logically, you have to say zero, nothing. If you go by the man-made logic, if nama, rupa, guna, karma is gone, what remains or what should remain? Nothing. Nothing. Vedanta comes and says, this is where you make a blunder. It is not nothing. It is the reality. The moment we say it is the reality, then comes the most illogical question of a human being because of the human conditioning. What is the most illogical question that arises because of the human conditioning? How to experience that reality, sir? There is the reality means now how do I know that reality? How do I experience that reality? The moment you ask this question, how do I know? How do I experience? What are you asking? You are asking, what is the nama, rupa, guna, karma of the reality so that I can know it, I can experience it. So whenever you ask this question, how do I experience the reality? The question that you are asking is, what is the nama, what is the rupa, what is the guna, and what is the karma? For if you tell me all this four, I know what reality is. So either you can understand the reality or you can experience the reality. Why? Because all human cognition, all human understanding arises by externalizing it. The fundamental limitation of human understanding is everything has to be externalized. Only when you externalize it, you can understand something. Because of this human limitation, the mistake that we do is we want to bring in reality also into the same purview. What is the same purview? By wanting to experience it. That is why we say there is no such thing called experiencing Brahman. There is no such thing called spiritual experience and all that. Again, it's product of the mind. It's a product of the thought. Product of the mind means it's a product of a thought. Therefore, At one level, there is qualities, nama, rupa, guna, karma. At another level, if you remove all the nama, rupa, guna, karma, what remains at the core? What remains at the core? A name is given to that called reality. A name is given to that called Brahman. Once a name is given, you get some understanding of it. Are you okay till now? Some name is, what is that? What is it? Consciousness. How to experience consciousness? How to experience consciousness? You are experiencing now. It is no how to experience it as though you are not. It is a permanent. That is where the difference comes between the real illuminator and the borrowed illuminator. The sun is the real illuminator. Moon is the borrowed illuminator. Borrowed illuminator is a matter of experience at one point of time. In borrowed illuminator, you experience light at one point of time. You do not experience light at another point of time. In the sun, S-U-N, there is no such thing as no light at all, no illumination at all in relation to the sun. Similarly, that is why consciousness is equated to the, whenever we talk about consciousness, we bring in the example of the sun. Because it is the closest example that communicates what? A illuminator which illuminates by itself. Not as an externalizing something. The illumination which is not borrowed. The illumination which is its own intrinsic nature. In the case of the moon, the illumination is borrowed. Similarly, in the case of the object, there seems to be an object existing because it has borrowed something from the consciousness. It has borrowed something from the consciousness. In the case of the subject also, there seems to be an active subject interacting with an active object. Even though the subject and object are inert matter, no life by itself, but the object also seems to have life in it. The subject also seems to have life in it, and there is an interaction between the two because both are borrowed. Borrowed nale, borrowed means there is a lender, no? Correct? If you want to borrow, you have to, there's a lender, isn't it? Two words, isn't it? Lena, dena, ba. Correct? Ganesh. I also know Hindi. He only keeps complaining you don't know Hindi, sir. Yeah. How can you not know Hindi? Ganesh, I also know Hindi little bit.
Agreed.
To convey philosophy, I know. There is a Lena, there is a Lena, isn't it? So it is borrowing means there is a lender. So consciousness is the lender. These two are the borrower. Vedantic theory of perception establishes that. That's all the Vedantic theory of perception is. There is the borrower, there is the lender. Who's the borrower? The thought in the form of the subject is the borrower. Qualities and attributes in the form of the object is the borrower. Who's the lender? Consciousness that lends vitality to the borrower. Consciousness that lends vitality to the subject. Consciousness that lends vitality to the object. So, if the consciousness switches off, what happens? Theoretically speaking, theoretically saying, consciousness will never switch off. Why it will switch off? So if it, so assuming that it switches off, what happens? The subject-object interaction itself will not happen. When the subject-object interaction doesn't happen, no knowledges will arise. So all knowledges arise only when the subject interacts with the object, and both are inert by nature, and what vitalizes them is Brahman. Consciousness is consciousness is the closer word in English. In Sanskrit, we use the word prajnanam. Actually, we don't use the word. Actually, it's not prajnanam, it's prajna. Prajna, when you are talking in the way, it becomes prajnanam. Therefore, what is it that is lending it? It is prajna. And this word prajna is there in all the local languages also, in the Indian languages also. I know for sure in 2 languages it's there. When the fellow has fainted, what will they say? Prajna is gone. Nowadays these people here also don't use these words in their vocabulary. Okay, it's all all these wonderful words are lost. When someone is there, prajna poettu, they say. The fellow has lost prajna. So prajna is the word which is used, which has taken from the Sanskrit language, which means, if you remember, we did the prajna analysis in the introduction itself. We did all that. Pra plus nya and all that. I'm not going into that again. We did that. So that now you should be able to connect it to that and understand. Now you should be able to connect it to that and what is that? Object means that which is external. And what is the object made up of? Qualities, attributes. English, he just in one word it is used in English. What is the one word it is used in English? It is called as the qualities. Qualities. To make it more precise, use the 4. Nama, Rupa, Guna, Karma. Name, form, guna, a particular specific action. Nama, Rupa, Guna, Karma. So when you say a flower, what is a flower? It is the specific set of qualities and attributes that makes it distinguishable from the rest. Correct? In order to experience something, it has to be distinguishable from the rest. If you do not know how to make the distinctions, all looks the same, isn't it? Quite a few times, at least I have thought like that. All the penguins looks the same, isn't it? One, you cannot distinguish one from the other. All the penguins looks that they are not the same. Their individual distinctions and characteristics are there, isn't it? They're not the same. All the zebras will look the same. All the Indians looks the same. All the Chinese looks the same. They are not same, isn't it? So understanding means distinguishable. You should be able to distinguish it. Distinguish it means it has to stand apart from the rest. On what basis it stands apart from the rest? It has its individual nama, rupa, guna, karma. What is called as quality of the pen. That's called the quality of the flower. That's what he calls as quality of the pen, etc. Is it only that? Is it only nama, rupa, guna, karma? No. It's not only. It can't be only nama, rupa, guna, karma plus Brahman. Just as in Atma Bodha we did that. When you see the hand, no hand. Hand, no hands. Are you able to see my hands? Yeah, yeah. I'm still seeing where the camera. Okay. I'm not hand. No. When the hand comes, light doesn't come. When the hand goes, light doesn't go. When you say hand comes, the hand goes, what is remaining constant? That neither comes nor goes? Light. So when the qualities and attributes, this nama, rupa, guna, karma and all comes and goes, what remains constant? Brahman. Therefore, it is called quality of the flower plus Brahman. Sorry, quality of flower plus Brahman. Quality of the pen plus Brahman. Hand came and went. Now the mouse comes and goes. Isn't it? So there is a quality of flower, quality of pen, like that. You can account for all the objects, all that can be viewed, experienced, understood, can be put into a mathematical equation. What is a mathematical equation? QO1, QO2, QO3, etc. And in every QO1, what is implied? What you have to supply? QO1 plus B, QO2 plus B, QO3 plus B. This is as far as the object is concerned. Now we come to the subject. Temporarily we take, even though in the true sense, the real subject is not the original seer is never the seen. Even though that is the real subject, for argument's sake, we take the mind as the temporary subject. Mind means here thought. In this context, whenever we use the word mind, it means the thought. The subject is the mind. And what is the mind made up of? Various thoughts. It is just made up of, various thoughts. It is made up of. Corresponding to each and every object, there is a thought. Because previous week, we established that the thought in the subject and the quality and attribute in the object, when both connects, then only there arises the knowledge. What is the knowledge? The knowledge of there is a pen, there is a flower, there is a book, there is this person. The absence is also knowledge. Knowing something, knowing the presence of something is knowledge. Knowing the absence is also knowledge. There is class, knowledge. Okay. Sometimes there is the tension. Today is Wednesday. Last minute they will say classes. And so knowing that there is a class is one type of knowledge. Knowing that there is no class is also. So it means what? Corresponding to all the objects, there is the thought. Because if the thought is not there, who's recognizing the presence? Nobody. Therefore, for perception to happen, there is the subject in the form of the thought. There is an object in the form of nama, rupa, guna, karma. Now, in what is lending sentiency to the thought? Therefore, we come to the subject and bring in the same equation, Brahman. The thoughts are many. The thoughts are many according to the corresponding variety of objects. But again, what is common? Brahman is common. Consciousness is common. How do we say that? Because we have already seen both are matter by nature. And matter by itself doesn't have any life. So it borrows. one of the critical learnings in Vedantic study is how it is all matter and it doesn't have any life by itself. That is the very critical study. That is a very critical knot. One of the biggest knot in Vedantic understanding is how they are matter by themselves. They don't have any sentiency, and it borrows it from the reality. That is why when we define human being also, it is defined as human being is matter plus spirit. Matter plus spirit. Matter plus spirit. So what you experience is the combination. Very difficult to understand it as matter. If you remember in one of the classes last week, I don't know which class, one of the classes we defined what goes into matter. The few things that goes defines the few things that defines matter. And all that has no life in itself. Yeah, Kenopanishad. When we did the Kenopanishad mantra, we did a huge introduction to that. And the introductions are bigger than the texts sometimes. So in that introduction, we saw how they are matter and it has no sentiency in itself. Number one. Number two, it appears to be sentient because it's borrowing. It's borrowing. As we saw today, if it is borrowing, if there is a borrower, obviously it means there is a lender. If there is a borrower, there is a lender. Who is the borrower and who is the lender? The thought and the Namarupa Guna Karma are the borrowers. Brahman is the lender. Therefore, in the medium of Brahman, transaction happens. In the medium of Brahman, the subject mind in the form of thoughts interacts with the object which has its own specific Namarupa Guna Karma. There arises, when this interaction happens, there arises a conditioned knowledge. What is this conditioned knowledge? This conditioned knowledge of I know. I know there is a pen. I know there is no pen. There arises a conditioned knowledge. Conditioned by, when we say conditioned knowledge, what do you mean by conditioning? The thought is one aspect of the conditioning. The Nama Rupa Guna Karma is another aspect of conditioning. So both the conditionings create a conditioned knowledge, and because of the play of illusion, the conditioned knowledge is taken to be the real knowledge. Therefore, the temporary world appears to be real. And what is the play of the illusion, which we will see in the next lesson? That's the next lesson, Maya. In order to understand Maya, you need to have a clarity on how knowledge happens. On what basis you give it a sense of reality? The sense of reality because it is borrowed. As it is, consciousness is borrowed. And why borrow more things in life also? That's why I say don't borrow. Yeah. Don't borrow. Why? As it is. As it is, consciousness is borrowed. And on that you are living. On top of it, you go on. How can we live without borrowing, sir? You cannot live without borrowing because you are fundamentally borrowing from all the sentiency is borrowed from the consciousness, reality. You call it consciousness, you call it reality, you call it Brahman. Therefore, what is perception now? I'm repeating again what I started. What is perception now? What appear as an object and a subject viewing them. Carefully follow. What? It's an appearance, not reality. What appear as an object and a subject viewing them. Please understand, both belong to the same category. What? The object and the temporary subject. Don't give temporary subject reality. The mistake that people make is the idealist made the mistake of giving the temporary subject the reality and ignoring the object. The realist is making the mistake of giving the temporary object the reality and while ignoring the subject. So they ignore one aspect of the temporary and make the other real. What Vedanta comes and says, both are temporary, na problem is solved, isn't it? Both are temporary, na problem. Only if you keep one as temporary and the other as real, you get into problems. Here we come and say, how can you keep one as real and the other as temporary? Both are temporary. Therefore, what appear to us as objects in plural and a subject viewing them, which we generally take to be us, have no intrinsic reality and exist only in relation to the other. The thought is dependent on the quality is dependent on the thought, meaning one temporary is dependent on the other temporary. So these two temporary gets together in the play of illusion, it appears real. The two temporary interplays. There is an interaction between the two temporary. And this interaction between the two temporary makes it look real. And why it appears to be real? Because it has borrowed it, because the sentiency is borrowed from the reality. Just as Atmabodha example, how does the crystal look blue? Because it has borrowed the blue color. Another example, how does the moon appear to have light? Even though there is no such thing called moonlight, but moon appears to have light. Why? Because it borrows. And what is the indication of borrowing? The indication of borrowing is the two phases the moon goes through, no? What are the two phases the moon goes through? Krishna Paksha, Shukla Paksha, Sanskrit. In English, it is, what is it called in English? Waxing, waning, something they say, no? It appears to be bright at one point of time. It appears zero at another point in time. And it keeps oscillating between these two because it is borrowed. Therefore, the conclusion. What is the conclusion? Vedantic theory of perception concludes by saying, for analytical purposes, we take thought as the subject and quality as the object. But on deeper scrutiny, we cannot take thought as the subject. Why? Because the thoughts themselves are observable. The thoughts themselves are viewable, understandable, not by the eyes maybe. You may not see the eyes, you may not see the thoughts with the eyes, correct? But still thoughts are viewable, understandable, experienceable. Anything that is viewable, understandable, experienceable is external. External means it is object. So all that we experience belong to the category of the object. Mathematically, in the form of an equation, it is explained. Reaction of the subject and the object, the world appears, and all this is happening in the medium of Brahman. What is the medium of example for the medium of Brahman? The hand coming, the hand going. The arrival of the hand is not the arrival of light. The departure of hand is not the departure of light. In the medium of light, the hand comes and goes. It means it has a temporary appearance, disappearance, appearance, disappearance, for which a few examples are given. Some practical examples he gives. What is it? The first example is the very common example. Two palms clapping produce sound. In the Zen, they say one hand clapping. How can there be one hand clapping? Consciousness. And they say one hand. How can there be one hand? How can you clap with one hand? Yes, no? So clapping means two hands. Similarly, the subject alone cannot produce the world. The object alone cannot produce the world. It is the impact between the two that creates the world. Subject and object are like two poles of electricity. Another example. When they come together, there arises the perception of the world. Brahman conditioned by thought becomes the subject. Brahman conditioned by quality becomes the object. So what is the subject? Brahman. What is the quality? Object. What is the object? The qualities. Therefore, the subject and object are nothing but when the two conditionings of Brahman. Actually, Brahman doesn't get conditioned at all. How can Brahman be conditioned? But still, for analytical purposes, we assume that there is this conditioning, and this one. Then what is this conditioning? No. It is not conditioning. It is Maya. That's what we are going to see in the next lesson. Now theoretically there is this conditioning. What is this conditioning? In the form of subject and in the form of object. Another example is the wave and the ocean. The third example. Brahman is likened to the water in the ocean. One wave to the subject, another to the object. Both are not different. It appears to be different. Are you able to follow now? What is the inference that you have to draw from this? The subject and object, even though they appear to be different, they are not different. It is appearance that makes the difference. And what is that appearance? Maya. That's what we will see in the Nama Rupa, a specific configuration. That's all. Exactly like chemistry. All forms of life, they break it down to carbon, isn't it? Organic chemistry, all forms of life is broken down to carbon. And for everything they will give a carbon equation. In the school, that organic chemistry class is so goes for a chakkar beyond a point, can't under. So we'll tell the sir, we'll simply by heart and write and give marks. That's all. For all forms of life is reduced to 2. All forms of life is reduced to carbon. Correct? Has anybody studied chemistry here? If nobody has studied chemistry, it is very good. I can say whatever I want. You have studied chemistry. Yaar, who has studied? Shankar, you studied chemistry also. Anything you ask studied, he will raise his hand and say, I know. You say mathematics, he will raise his hand. You say chemistry, raise his hand. Finance, he will raise his hand. Correct, no? Shankar. Marketing. See, now he's not raising the hand. Otherwise, for everything, he's raising his hand. One wave to the subject, another wave to the object. That's what it is. One aspect of the ocean, the subject, Another aspect of ocean, the object. Therefore, what you see as subject and object truly are not subject and object. It has an appearance. And what causes the appearance? Thought in the form of the subject, nama rupa guna karma in the form of the object. Thought in the form of the subject, nama rupa guna karma in the form of the object. Therefore, all that you experience is not distinct and different as you think it to be. What is the commonality to everything that makes both the subject and object the same? Agamapayinaha anityaha. What makes the subject and object of the same material? They come and go. They are impermanent. That's where the two words. It's like certain things you should know by at least first to memorize it. Over a period of time, it becomes part of you. First, you have to memorize it, then it becomes part of you. So, what is it that is common to subject and object? Is agama payinaha anityaha. What is the mistake of the idealist? They made the subject nityaha. What is the mistake of the realist? They made the object nitya. Vedanta comes and says both the subject and object belongs to the same category. So combine them as one and call them as matter. And then there is something enlivening it, which is the spirit. How do you know that it is matter? It seems to be alive at one level of consciousness in the waking state and dream state, in the deep sleep state. In the waking state, it is alive. In the dream state also it is alive. In the deep sleep state, what happens? That's why even they come and go. It's not the waking state is permanent. It's not the dream state is permanent. It's not the deep sleep state is permanent. That's why we study the three states of consciousness. And when we study the three states of consciousness, Montequieu defines it only as two. What? Dream and deep sleep, meaning expression and no expression, manifestation and no manifestation. In the manifestation, there are grades. In the manifestation, there are grades. Therefore, it is agamapayinaha, it is anityaha, means within the world they are temporary, they come and go. As the unit, they come and go. Ganesh, are you able to follow? Within the world, they come and go. And the world itself comes and goes, as in the waking state to dream state to deep sleep state. That all this happens because the movement, the support, it seems to have life, all because it is supported by Brahman. And this example we'll be seeing from now on, the pot space and the total space. When we read Maya, we will do that. We'll do that study a lot. Just as in Atma Bodha, we studied snake and rope analysis. Here we'll do the pot space and total space analysis. Just as it has an appearance of division, but by itself it has no division. Why? Because if something can divide the space, it should be pre-existing in space to come and divide it. No, that's why space is indivisible. Able to follow? If something has to divide space, where it should be existing? It should be pre-existing in space only. It means space is the indivisible. Space is the indivisible. In matter, the closest that we come to the indivisible aspect is the space. And Vedanta borrows that example of space also to explain Brahman. So Brahman is like space. Brahman is not space. Brahman is like space. Why? Because the play of the subject and object, the interaction between subject and object in no way affects it. We have temporarily, for analytical purposes, we have borrowed, we have accepted there is the subject and there is the object. And there is an interaction between the subject and object. Now, what happens to Brahman in this interaction? What happens to Brahman when the subject and object are interacting? What happens to Brahman? Nothing happens to Brahman. How is it possible, sir? How is it possible that nothing can happen to it? Brahman is like space. Understand it as Brahman is like space. Space cannot be conditioned. Space cannot be limited. Space cannot be divided. But it appears that it can be. It appears that it can be divided. It appears that it can be conditioned. It appears that it can be limited. Example, pot space and the total space. This is Vedantic theory of perception. The reality you give to the world is because of the interaction between subject and object. When there is an interaction between the subject and the object, there arises something and it appears real. Next lesson, we are going to see what appears as real is not real. What appears as real is not real. It's only Maya. When we go there, we'll see how that is happening. So to conclude in one sentence, what is theory of perception? How reality is given to the world. How sense of reality is given to the world. The sense of reality is given to the world when there is an interaction between the subject and the object. Subject meaning the thought, object meaning nama rupa guna karma. So when there is an interaction between the two, there arises a knowledge. Knowledge of the world. It's not just the knowledge of the world. What we mean by knowledge of the world is the sense of reality that comes with it. Are you able to follow now what is theory of perception say? It's not only the knowledge, along with the existence of an object, the sense of reality that comes along with it. There is a pen, the knowledge that there is a pen, the knowledge that there is a pen brings something added to it. What is that additional thing? There is a real pen. There is a real pencil. There is a real person. There is a real problem. They say, no, I have a real problem, sir. I have a real problem. How can really you cannot have a? In reality, you can never have a problem. So you see, so along with the pen, it's not just the pen. It is the pen backed by its real. Are you able to follow? It is the world backed by it's a real world. Illusion, Maya teaches you what? Temporarily, we accept that there is a pen. We don't deny that. Vedanta says we don't deny that there is no pen. We don't say this pen is hallucination. We don't say that. Vedanta doesn't say that. It says there is a pen. But what is it that you are adding to the pen? What is it that you are adding to the pen? Huh? Napa Vijay, what are you adding to the pen? Reality. You are adding reality to it. How can you have the knowledge of the pen and not add reality to it? That is Vedanta. You have the knowledge of the pen, but not add reality to it. You have the knowledge of the apple, but not add reality to it. You have knowledge of the situation, but you will not add reality to it. That's how a Vedantin becomes free of everything. How does he become free of everything? He will not say there is no pen. If he's saying there is no pen, he's blind, isn't it? He will not say there is no pen. What are you supposed to say? Temporary. That the fact that it is temporary is taught by Vedanta. The interaction between subject and object gives you the knowledge that it is a real pen. Where does Vedanta knowledge comes in here? Okay, temporarily we accept that there is a pen. We accept that. Agreed that there is a pen. Abada, there is a satisfaction first. Because if you say no pen, you will say, what do you think, I'm blind or what? Isn't it? First they say, it is, yes, temporarily we accept there is a pen. And when you say there is a pen, what are you saying along with the pen? Which is implied to all your experiences. That one common word that you give, that one common attribute that you give to everything, real. Illusion is going to come and say, the chapter on Maya is going to come and say, it is temporary. And what temporary means? Time frame. What determines the time frame and all we are going to see. If we say it as temporary, the time frame. What is that? How temporary? What determines the temporariness? What determines the time factor? The depth of your ignorance or the depth of your knowledge. The depth of your ignorance or the depth of your knowledge determines the temporariness, the longevity, Maya, which we will continue in the next session. So we start with the lesson Maya in the next session. We conclude for today. Okay, Ganesh? Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Very good.